Are we there yet?
Cheerio, jolly chat.
I like that truck behind you right there, Ray.
It's a really nice truck. It's classic.
Love that.
It's
5. I set up these
the Bumblebee edition.
I should set up mine.
freaking windows here. All right. Let's see. Is it gonna load today, Junior?
Not gonna
How about-
load.
How
There
about
we
this?
go.
This background right here.
There it
I
isn't.
mean, I know we're here, but is everyone else here?
There it isn't. Let's get that chat. No, I don't want to hide the chat. I want to
I like
pop
that
the
background,
chat.
Ray.
JR, shoot. I didn't call you. Crap. I'll call you tomorrow. I completely forgot. Just seeing your little icon made me remember. I hear you right now. I know. I got you. You good. All right. Yay. I didn't end this meeting for everybody. Woohoo! All right. What up, Zeekster, Brizzy, Skidoo, New York Sucks, who might be coming up seeing us, maybe. King Ranch, hello, everybody, welcome. So I am kind of want to talk about something. The title pretty much says it, and I titled it, and Board Boss is here. DS Trucks, where the double HE hockey sticks is you. Oh, he's afraid that he's probably going to fall asleep. It's okay, man. We had to talk about that.
Yeah, he's lurking. I see him in there.
He's lurking.
Oh,
So you told me that's what was going to fix my truck. It's not fixed. I'm not paying. Okay, so that's the title. That's how I said it. That's how I wanted to say it, but you can only get so many characters. Good job, King Ranch. Good job. Yeah, you needed batteries anyway. Remember? We were talking about that. So what do? We got a couple of owner operators in here. We have a handful of technicians. We're all pretty much on the same team. So I'm directing this to all 85 of you. You guys are in the comments. What's up, Firewood Fred? Thought about you today. I had to do a Vista sunroof track. You were my last one. What do you guys do? How do you guys handle this? I am in an instance right now. Let me paint the picture. I got a good client of mine. He's being so cool. He's totally understanding. I have no gripes. What up, Zoo Dad? I have no gripes with him whatsoever. I'm at a battle with myself. I'm a battle with my knowledge. I am a battle with the truck.
Steve,
This is kind of a weird scenario, and it's a 15 6.7 a porch monkey. It is been used. He is a hot shotter, goes from coast to coast. He's towing 10 to 15,000 pounds all the time. So it's got 424,000 miles. He's uses top tier oil, uses Motorcraft filters, is seeing me for coolant changes and trans and this and that, and do what you got to do to keep the truck on the road, the brakes and suspension. So now he comes to me. I'm gonna say, let's start 3 months ago, and he had this reduced power issue. And it was really weird. The reduced power would flash up on the instrument cluster, but there were no diagnostic trouble codes. And you might ask yourself, like, well, why that like goes against everything that we know? Like, well, if there's a reduced power, there's gotta be. Never was a check engine light. So knowing what you all know, what we talk about here, and what we don't talk about here on the channel, this client had a competitor's disaster prevention kit on. And we have known out in the field. What's up, Corey Johnson? Can somebody look into for yes, shoot me your VIN. We'll check it out for you right away. Absolutely. It was hypothesized, well, maybe this one is causing a restriction, and it's not happening very, very long, and it's not setting a diagnostic trouble code. So let me recommend you upgrade to SNS disaster prevention kit. Mind you, I took the VCV out of the pump, didn't see any metal. This has got over 400,000 miles on it. Still the same CP4, same injectors, same rail, newer, actually not newer, new. He just replaced low pressure pump. So we put the disaster prevention kit on, and mind you, he goes from coast to coast. I put him back out in the field, and he's gone about a month between schedules and getting back. He's back, and now it's the same problem. This time it's died, and he had to tow it back from Pennsylvania. So I get it. It doesn't start today. Crank it, 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 crank. Nothing. I didn't have the computer hooked up, so I'm just listening. I'm like, all right, let me go get the plow truck, do all my stuff, blah, 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 blah. Get it into the shop, hook up IDS, and FRP is reading 4,600 PSI KOEO. The truck has not been cranked in over a half an hour because by the time I had to do something else, get the truck, tow it in, hook the battery charger. So there should be absolutely no reason why there's 4,600 PSI just standing right now ready to, that's only if you're cranking. All right, well, let me see if it's going to crank, or let me see if it's going to start. Crank it, crank it, crank it, crank it, crank it, crank. 4,600, not starting. Well, let me look at the FRP sensor. This WTF. I look at it, it's connected. I don't see anything wrong, disconnect it. It goes to 31,000. Connect it back, goes to 4,600. And then I start wiggling the connector, just messing with the FRP, and it's doing all this. It should be nice like this. It's all noisy on the graph. I'm like, oh, whoa, wait, what's going on? Maybe it's got to be a wire. I'm looking at the connector, the wires come right out of the plastic. Sometimes they can get real brittle. Nothing. So what do? Plug it back in. The thing fires up. I'm like, oh, come on, man. What is going on? All right. Well, FRP isn't going to make it not start. I started it up. I disconnected the FRP, started it up. It ran. So we know it's going to run without the FRP hooked up. The pump's going to make it not run. The PCV is going to make it not run. He said it cut off him on the freeway, just like you shut the key off.
It sounds like a left-hand rail.
Okay. That's kind of what I was thinking. I'm like, well, we know there's something wrong with the FRP sensor. It shouldn't have been reading 4,600 PSI. It finally calmed down after I got done messing with it. It was at like 670 at 0.3 volts. Reference voltage. The reference chart said the voltage should be there and the pressure should be 105 PSI. Dude, there's something going on with this FRP. I don't want to just replace the FRP. I'd like to replace that whole rail because the thing in the back could potentially be causing this issue. Mind you, I've had no codes. So I'm going based on symptom. And now I'm at the system where we're hypothesizing this potential failure. So rail's $274. A pump is $1,600, a CP4. He's trying to get this done on Friday. I don't have an opportunity to have a DCR. I don't even want to talk about a CP4. I want the DCR. Can't get the DCR right now. So I put the rail on it. Fires right up. FRP's reading good. Take it out and drive it. I put 10 miles on it. I get a good, solid, like 4-second pull from like 60 to 80. Boom, reduced power. I just sold this guy a rail. I just sold this guy labor. This didn't fix it. I got a helper, a quicklane guy working with me. I'm just like, the emotion that I have. I'm not pissed off. I'm not F this, you know. I'm just, it's just, oh man, damn. 1,000 things going through my head. All right. Well, what's the next thing in the tree? It's going to be the pump. I can't test the pump directly. So I'm talking with my customer. He's being totally cool. And he's like, man, I just don't want to swallow another $2,600 repair or whatever this is going to be and not have it fix it. So now, I call him up and I'm like, what's up, man? He's like, dude, I don't even know if I want to talk to you, man. I'm like, I don't even know if I want to talk to you, man. Just joking around. Where he's being that cool, So, I am sympathizing with the customer. The pump isn't cheap. The labor's going to be, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours, maybe 5. I hope I'm not going to run into anything. And the code the code I wind up getting was a fuel pressure learned exceeded limits. I've had this code before one time. And I told the guy, I'm like, yeah, man, let's put a rail on it. And it didn't fix it. The pump did. So now here I am. He didn't want to put a pump on it. Let's try the rail. This is the less intrusive, the cheapest right now. Potentially could fix it. But now I have this code after putting the rail on. And do I put a pump in it? I asked my coworker. So you ask your other surgeons. You call in, your surgeon from floor number 2 and the surgeon from floor number 5. And hey, I just want to run some. I know you're not in this department, but I just want to run some by you. Tell me what you think if my thinking process is right. And dude concurred. He said I had a 500,000 mile 6.7 in here and had a problem meeting the pressures and the high pressure fuel pump test in IDS. It raises the, maybe I need to do a video showing you guys. It's actually kind of cool. It raises the RPM up just a little bit and then commands 5,000. And then raises the RPM up a little bit more and then commands 10,000. It does this in increments and it sees how fast it builds up and it sees how fast it goes down. And it kept failing the time it took to bleed up. Step 1, 2, and 3. It met it, but the pressure time took too long. Oh, what do you do? What do you do? I'm at a fork in the road.
Well, I mean, right here in the theory and op, it calls out the PCV. I was going to try to share it, but I don't have sharing.
Screen sharing. Sorry. Screen sharing. It's it's kind of a rock in a hard place. I almost want to tell the guys like, hey man, I'll split the cost with you. I really want to fix your truck and I really think it's the pump. But then you got the devil advocate over here and it's like, what if it doesn't fix it? And I'm like, but the truck's got 400,000 miles on it. Stuff is going to wear out. You know what I mean? I know you guys are all in the comments nodding your head.
So
What about the rail, Aaron? What about eating the rail and saying like, look, I'll eat the rail. Give me the opportunity to put this pump in it because, here's the reason why. And then go.
I didn't think of that. That's a great idea.
That's what Cody's about to show right now. And then if the dealership has any of that good, like customer loyalty money or something like that, maybe it could, because this is a good customer of yours, it could go towards that loyalty.
That's a really good idea.
And that way you can be like, hey, I'm going to take care of this on this end. This is the route I was going. If you look at the flow chart, it was leading me in this direction. It did not, that was not it. This is where I need to go. Are you on board with that? If I take care of you on this end, and at least you got another new rail and stuff out of this, and that's taken care of.
Well, you guys remember me talking about the rail. The rail is important on the 6.7. We have 3 parts or components, not parts. One of it's not a part. But in the front of the rail, right on the driver's front, is the FRP sensor.
Yeah.
Back of the rail is the pressure control valve. And kind of in the middle is an orifice. And that is supposed to equalize the pressure between this rail and the passenger side rail. And if that doesn't happen, we can start getting fuel starvation or some fuel imbalance calculation DTCs. There's basically another video I should probably make, show you guys these PIDs that we can look at. When the engine's running, we can see this is 0 in the middle. We can see the adjustment on all the injectors. One of the questions it asks, are the injector adjustments relatively in line with them? You don't want to see the graph where they're out like this. You want all of them somewhat like this. And it's up to us, the technicians, to dissect this information and put it into, thought process. And sometimes we don't have a easy way to do that. So that's why I'm bringing this up tonight. I want to talk about how this makes me feel, how this makes you guys feel as the customer. And because we have a couple of owner operators in here, now we actually can, see how this is going to affect the business side of things. And you're thinking about customer loyalty, how much is this going to be, do we have the funds for this, but I really want to help this customer. So all this takes into consideration. And I hope at a dealership setting you have people who would want to work with you like this, because I hate when in instances people do the parts canon or don't want to do the diagnostics and write into a Fortech hotline and say, hey, how do I fix this truck? Well, did you even hook the computer up to it? Did you even do your due diligence? So let me, while Cody's doing this, let me look at some of the comments up in here. We need to get the VIN here. I see it here right there. Corey Johnson, I haven't forgot about you.
I already got him.
Oh, did you? Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Coffee Table Book. If you guys haven't checked the Coffee Table Book out for 6-7, I highly recommend it. A lot of great information.
Answers a lot of questions.
Yes,
Basic
absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, I'm not afraid to pull it out either. I mean, here I am doing it on live YouTube.
Yeah.
I know
love
firsthand
it.
Hot Shot is very rough on pickups, but a lot of you hot shot guys, it seems like are the only cats that take care of your trucks. Hands down.
It's their business to take care of that truck.
Hands down. You
They
guys
live in
all need to be taking up. Yep.
As such, I can weigh in a little bit on that rail. You said it yourself, you've got a 400,000 mile component that has 3 critical parts built into it. Okay. That was right in line with your diagnostic process, and it made sense. Yeah, you missed the bullseye, but that doesn't mean that. I mean, would you immediately go after a pump when you've got a rail to look at? Why would you put a $2,000 pump in when you can put a $300 rail on it? Like you followed the right process.
Yep.
With the fuel
hold on,
pressure.
check it out. So the customer is going to be leaving with that rail. So he got that rail. So he got potential 3 parts changed at 400,000 miles for a few $100. That's a good deal for a hot shotter, especially. Okay. So
Absolutely.
I think at the most he pays for his part. And if you want to meet him in the middle, you eat up the labor. Does that make sense?
Or have the dealer eat the labor or discount the labor and still pay. I mean, I don't want to not get
I'd
paid.
go like that. Well, he's still getting the part. He still gets to drive away with the piece. And in his situation, having that new piece, that new rail is not going to do him any harm in the future whatsoever.
Absolutely.
With the amount of money that you're going to have to end up putting into the job anyway, you can, there's ways that it can be made right comfortably on both parties.
Yeah.
Without any discrepancies and still come out, great job. Thanks for fixing my vehicle. Thanks for getting me back on the road. Kind of sucks that, there was a little snag in the road or something like that, but we got it. We figured it out, and this is where we're at. Lesson learned,
Mm-hmm.
But that's the business. I mean, that's just how it is all day, every day. Nothing goes the way you think it's going to go.
Absolutely.
It doesn't work that way. We don't live that life. It's not.
I mean, even looking at the DTC and the possible causes, pump's not in it.
Right. Exactly. Just like Cody said right here.
So, I mean, who's going to look at the pump right away? You'd have to get all the way down to the bottom of pinpoint test M before you even get to a pump, and you're putting a rail in it way before then.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And with the bias FRP to begin with, like, well, you might as well just replace the rail because it's
Exactly.
right there and
But
it's
that's one of the
everything. And
things- That's one of the things Ford does anyway. Before Diesel Dan left to go to the other dealer, to be the lead diesel guy there, Hotline had him put in like 7 rails because there was an issue with the way the FRP sensor was reading, and there was a known case where the new rails was something to do with a compatibility between the version he had versus what he was getting. And then he
Really?
said, you know how I ended up fixing it, Rich? I took the new updated rail and I took the old FRP sensor out of it and I swapped that FRP sensor into the new rail, and that's what fixed my problem.
And I was
he
just,
said-
I was
go
just
ahead.
trying to figure out how it reads it. And it doesn't even give that much of information because like you got an exceeded high and an exceeded low.
Mm-hmm.
So is exceeded high meaning high pulse width modulation showing that it can't make enough pressure, or is it the fuel pressure is too high?
Yeah,
And
right.
there's just nothing that it says. It just says a deviation of 20% in fuel rail pressure slope.
Regular.
Hmm.
So it's like, is it exceeding it high as in the pulse width, or
Yeah.
is it exceeding it high in fuel pressure? It just doesn't say. So
I would assume it's telling you the fuel pressure is too high or too low, because I would imagine that if the pulse width was not right, it would say circuit high or circuit low. I think you'd get a different code, wouldn't you?
I would agree.
it's reacting based on an FRP that's biased.
Okay.
So it's like, is it?
But my thing is, how come it did not start and FRP was reading 4,600?
Hmm.
I
Check the
disconnected FRP. Once it started, I disconnected FRP and was like, well, let me see if it starts with that without FRP on. Go to fire it up and it fired up. So I'm like, oh,
Well, then why did you have 4,000 PSI key on engine off? Did you?
I don't know.
Check
Is
your
there something wrong with the FRP?
check your circuit. What if there's a short in the circuit?
And you temporarily fixed it by messing around with it, plugged it back in. So you're gonna have to do like what Ray's
Pigtail
talking
will be here
about.
tomorrow.
Well, I mean, think about it, because all right, so you said you unplugged the FRP, and what'd you get, like 30,000 pounds on the scan tool when it was
That's
open
normal
circuit?
though. So
Okay, yeah, that's its high range. Okay, so figure out what the low range is. I mean, 0, maybe it goes into a negative, but you had a reading somewhere in the middle, which means the PCM was picking up resistance on that circuit, but it
Right.
might not have been a dead short. You know, you could have had a wire strand laying on top of a bell housing. You know what I mean? It may not, or you could have some corrosion in there.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
You've got a little bit of resistance, but not enough to generate a circuit code.
I
We
mean,
didn't have a pigtail. That's what I was waiting for. So I was gonna.
Did you do a pin fitment test on that, or you just unplugged it and plugged it back in?
I just unplugged it and plugged it back in. I looked at it with the mirror, thought maybe there's corrosion in the FRP cavity, and it was
I
nice
was
and
try-
clean.
I was having a conversation about this the other day with a guy from Mexico that contacted me and was like, dude, I watched your video on these airbag sensors on these Explorers 11 and 19, and I was able to fix our vehicle with the airbag stuff by unplugging and plugging the connector like you did. And that's what fixed the problem. And I had explained to him sometimes same thing, unplugging and plugging it back in may break enough of that surface tension or whatever residual barrier is built up. Could be just moisture in the air, a film of something, whatever it may be, cleaning it out, putting it back together. Sometimes actually fixes your problem on those 11 and 19.
New
And
bubbler.
temporarily, same situation like yours. You probably fixed it by breaking that surface tension, plugging everything back in. It may even be a pin fitment issue.
It does have 400,000 miles on it. Anything's
Right.
possible.
I
I
mean,
saw-
400,000
billion
miles worth of
times.
vibration.
pinpoint test M13 says FRP should be within 0 to 1,000 PSI QOEO.
Yeah.
So it's a big range.
Why would they say that? So that's my story for tonight. I wanna be fair with the customer. I mean, I'm doing a lot of diag. I'm doing the work. I don't want to work for free. I would want the dealer to take care of me, but I want the customer. I want all parties to be taken care of. But most importantly, I want the customer's concern to be resolved. And I think we're almost there. I just
I mean, even going through here and answering it how I would assume it would answer, it still only goes down to a VCV. Or a PCV. It doesn't even come out to a pump.
a
So-
VCV.
Oh, you're cheating going down to the bottom of the 10-point test?
No, I just answered it the way I would assume it would be answered,
Mm-hmm.
following the DTC he has. So it's gonna be 1 is gonna go to all others. Then you're gonna check your power, you're gonna probably have 12 volts. If you have
Yep,
15, you'd
I had
have
12.3.
another problem. Then you go to 4, you're gonna
Yep.
check your switch, that's gonna be fine.
Drain the fuel out of the disaster prevention. Looked great.
Then you're gonna do your relative compression.
Pass.
For no start concern or all others, which one did you, which one would
started.
have, it started at that point? Then you're gonna check your cylinder balance,
Yep.
then you're gonna check your power balance,
All of them were contributing equal.
then you're gonna check for bias fuel pressure, which you had at one point.
Okay, so I don't have bias no more. But
So
I
that would
started.
be- So we're gonna go to 15. We're gonna check for return leaks on the injectors. Which I mean, could cause a higher than normal fuel adaptation. But if you didn't find anything there, you're still going to M19. Then it's either go to M21 or replace the PCV. So it's like, it doesn't even get you to a pump either way. So it's like trial by fire and just start replacing parts.
Just a lot of money.
I ran into the same situation recently, Aaron.
What did you handle it with?
It's 13 Audi. Guy came in and said my engine is like rattling whenever I give it gas and stuff like that, and I can hear the timing chain slapping the front cover. Pull it down, rip the front bumper off, pull the front of the engine stuff off, put 2 new tensioners in it, timing chain kit. Beautiful job. Slapped it all back together, no leaks, everything's good. Take it for a test drive, everything's fine. Customer comes pick up the vehicle. That's a $1,800 job right there. Customer comes to pick up the vehicle, drives around the block, comes back and he says, "Hey man, there's still like a little bit of a rattle there. It's a different rattle, but it wasn't the rattle." I'm like, "Oh, come on, man. What is it now?" And he demonstrates it to me, and I was like, "Man, the rattle from the timing chain was so loud. I didn't hear that other rattle that was going on before, man. It's something I couldn't foresee this, man. I took care of your timing chain and your tensioners because they were 7 or 8 ribs out. I mean, this was to the point where pistons were about to kiss valves, man. That's what I went after because that's what I heard. That's what I
Damn.
seen was going on."
Mhm.
This other concern, unfortunately, is your actually it's your actual phaser that sits on the front of your camshaft that's actually made onto that camshaft. You're talking another almost $2,500 to even fix this engine with the secondary concern that I could not foresee, man. I could not foresee this. There's no way that I could have known this because you had an engine that was about to just freaking go, man. And you would have been out $4,000 or $5,000 for this. A new engine plus all the labor would have been easily could have been $6,500, $7,000. And what am I supposed to do in a situation like this, man? I didn't know. I didn't know that there was an additional sound that was going on because I knew the timing chain was wore out on this thing. And I talked to the guy and I started to rip the engine down. I got the valve cover has integrated cam bearings in it. So when you pull the valve cover off on this, the bearings are built into the upper half of the valve cover as well. So I go to pull this out and then we zip tie the chain into its position, and end up taking the camshaft out. We're slipping
Up,
it underneath
everybody.
and pulling it out.
Yo,
And what ended up happening is whoever had the vehicle before him really did not do the maintenance properly. I was talking to Eric about this, and I was like, how do I save this, man? You really can't save it. You're in a situation now where all the journals throughout the entire head were scored, and every single like bearing surface was like, you could take your nail and catch every single one of the grooves that was through it. It was so bad, and it was losing so much oil pressure in that area that it probably was not able to make it to the point where the phaser could advance and move around like it was supposed to. And under throttle, it would rattle. And I said, dude, I got to put a cylinder head on this thing, man. I can't save this, man. Either I'm putting a cylinder head on it or it needs an engine, because that material is now down in the engine. It's really, I can't save this. I can put a head on it, flush it out, get you another year, 6 months to a year, but you're probably going to end up putting an engine in this thing. So it sucks that you just dumped $1,800 in this timing chain and everything that it needed, but I didn't see the other things that were going on, but I couldn't. So the customer was like really depressed, man. And he's like, what do I do, Rich? This sucks, man. And then he's trying to blame it. He's like, really, like at first the first reaction was being mad at us. Why didn't you know? How come you couldn't solve this? How come you couldn't see this? Because I can't, man. You had other things going on with the vehicle that was masking what else was going on, and I fixed those, and now we're here, and you're really upset with me. I understand that, but I can't predict what else is going on when you've got
You
a
know-
timing chain.
You
Huh?
know
Go
how many
ahead.
engines? You know how many engines you could condemn if you dug into stuff before you performed any services? I mean,
Right.
you know, if somebody comes in with an engine and it's got 20 psi lower compression in one cylinder, you could condemn the engine. It might run just fine for the next 5 years, but
Right.
you know, like, what do you, a car comes in for a timing chain service and you're supposed to do a compression test. You're supposed to pull the rod caps and look at the bearings. You're supposed to pull, I mean, what are you supposed to,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
And unfortunately, I've learned from this, though. I learned from this. Here's the first thing that I learned was, after talking to Eric, that's done this for quite a while, and he's been involved in these. I've already got an engine from Eric that it turned out to be a phenomenal deal, and I got it in a vehicle that I bought. This other vehicle was going to be so costly with the head, the camshaft. The camshaft's $1,200 alone from the dealer, and that's with our general markup. I can only discount things so much. I'd rather discount the part sum to make up for it if I'm trying to help the customer than the labor, because my guys are the ones doing the work. I'm not going to discount somebody's labor. That's not something I like to do. The part I can. So I got the price down to about like $900. And I was like, this is the best that I can do on this part, because the dealer's literally charging me like $899 or $875, whatever it was for the part. And it's not easy to get this. And I wanted to use an OE part. And then the cylinder head, if you buy a complete cylinder head, you could be $1,600. You can buy a stripped down one for $400. It's been refurbished. And then you got all the labor, and the customer was like, no, at this point, man, I'm just going to be straight with you. I think I'm done with the car. I think I'm just going to let it go the way it is. And he said, what would you normally give if you bought cars like this? And I talked to Eric. I did overpay a little bit, but this is the situation that I felt like I had to do something for the customer, because I felt bad because of the position he was in. And I usually give $1,000 for these cars, because I'm going to have to buy a $2,500 engine, maybe $3,000 engine. Customer price could be $3,400 for that engine, or more. I'm gonna have to pay a guy a couple days to remove everything and install it, get it all right for me. So I'm going to be in this thing probably somewhere around $5,000, and fluids and everything else like that. I told the guy, because of your situation, I'm going to give you what you have in the car. I'm going to give you the $1,800 that you have in the car. I'm going to go ahead and purchase the camshaft, then I'll keep it myself. I'll give you a couple $100 extra or whatever, and I'll make it. How about we just make it $2,500 out the door? I'll buy the repair that you've already done. I'll purchase the car, and I'll give you a couple $100 more. Normally, I would not give this, because these cars really aren't worth that much if everything's not done correctly into the T. I bought the car from the guy. Normally, like I said, I'd pay $1,000 for a car like that needs a bunch of work, and not knowing what I'm going to get myself into. And it's a rough situation, man, when you're trying to make it right for the customer. And luckily the car was paid off and he didn't know anything on it. I did end up putting the camshaft in it, redoing all the timing and stuff like that. I got everything together. I did not put a new head on it, and now I'm stuck with a camshaft over retard coat on that vehicle, even though the vehicle runs great. We've redone the timing 2 or 3 times on this thing already. I think it was 3 times we redid the timing, but it's a rough procedure on the Audis because you can't do the timing like normal. You have to measure from a center point out and measure from a center point out, and it has to be within a certain, like Eric knows about this stuff. It's terrible. And then with me trying to get by, I talked to a machine guy and he said, what I want you to do is I want you to take a piece of emery cloth. It's going to take you a lot of time. And try to take out as many of those burrs as possible with a real fine grit. It's going to take hours to do it. You're going to have to sit there, clean it all up as much as possible, and then go with a thicker weight oil and see if this thing will run good. It still wouldn't run good. It still was set in the cam code. I'm going to have to put a cylinder head on this car. Now I've become my problem, but just like you, Aaron, you're trying to do the right thing. You're trying to not screw the customer. You're trying to do the best thing that you could possibly do in that situation. It's rough sometimes, and it sucks, man. It really sucks, especially when you have a conscience and you care about people. It sucks.
Yeah, well, I've dealt with this problem for a long time. I've bought some cars from customers that ended up not being so terrible. Like, they didn't know what was wrong with it. They took it to a shop. It was misdiagnosed. I bought a Mazda Millennia that they said that had a bad supercharger, and when they retimed it, it was 2 teeth out, causing the blower to knock. Like, all this stuff happens often, but I hate to say this, but you have to treat it like a business transaction unless you're vested in that person. Like, if this is a good customer, you can bend over backwards for the person. But like, from a business standpoint, you look at a car, it's an asset, right? So like, you got to find where your margins are, what you're going to put into it, or what you could get out of it. Worst case scenario, if you had to bail. And that's how I buy cars. I hate it, but if I buy it any other way, I end up overpaying for stuff, or I end up going backwards on something. It's unfortunate. And the big wins are great. And, I've reached out to people and said, hey, I bought this like a month ago. I finally tore into it. It ended up being, I bought a Miata once that somebody jumped backwards and nobody could figure it out. I bought it sight unseen, had a friend of mine haul it to me. I paid $500 for the car. I put an $11 main fuse in it and I drove it. It was nothing wrong with it. And I literally sent them a $500 check. I said, hey, this is the best I can do because I can't sleep right. And I told them, and I said, this is also, don't take it to that shop. If you can't diagnose a main fuse, you have no business working on a car. But at the same, I've heard the story from multiple shops that I deal with that try to sell me cars. I had a shop that condemned a dealership that just condemned a Sprinter, and we've put 1,200 miles on it already.
You're a good dude.
So
Yeah.
I hate to see people take huge losses at stuff, but some people, the money isn't even the matter. They don't even want the stress of it all.
You called that guy back and gave him money back?
Yeah, because it's not like you get what you put out. I sold the car for $3,500 in 2 weeks. I made my nut.
Yeah.
I did good on it, and I did a few other small things to it, but I had I made like $800 an hour on that car.
Does all that come back to you? Like you put it out in the universe?
I think so. The thing is, so I make a lot of decisions and I buy a lot of stuff and I buy a lot of cars and I work on a lot of stuff. You're bound to win big when you do a lot, but you're also bound to lose big. I've bought stuff from the auction that looks great and it gets in and it's just tore up. I've had people drag cars up to me and they want $1,500 for it, and I can tell it's been schmoozed over and it's got butt connectors on the engine harness, and it's like all hodgepodge together, and they're trying to pull one over on me. So I guess the experience of being able to see when that kind of stuff is happening before it happens is kind of a victory in itself. That experience is worth it because it protects my business. It makes me a better buyer. It makes me a better business owner. So you do get a lot out of that stuff. So sending $500 to some guy, like he never even like messaged me back. I know he cashed a check. I could see that, but
Yeah.
you know, I don't even care. I don't need the recognition for doing that. I know that he put $500 in his pocket. It might have made his day. He might not have cared. I don't care. I feel better about doing it.
Here's what you're going to get out of this, Aaron. When this is all done and tied up, you're going to look at the same situation the next time and you're going to be like, wait a second, I got this. I already.
Yep.
Same with me. The next time, because I work on a lot of these Audis, the
Yep.
next time this comes in here and that timing chain, I'm going to say, hold up. Eric taught me this. I learned this. I learned this. I learned this. Where I'm going to let them know up front exactly when I get into this job, this is how it may go. I just want to let you know right now. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
If not, pay me my diag fee and move on about your business or put an engine in this thing because that's the route it may go.
So
I'm just.
can
Are
I
you
get,
ready for it?
I guess I'm not caught up because I came in here halfway through it. I assume there's some backstory that Aaron can tell.
He's working a problem right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the
It-
main part is that wiggle that you're talking about, like when you
It,
wiggle
uh,
the wire.
It wound up coming down, you know, I had put a part on today and it didn't fix the guy's problem. And the next part in the diagnostic tree is to replace the pump. And he's now questioning, he's being totally cool, but he's like, you know, bro, man, I don't know if I do this, what if it doesn't fix it? Then I'm like, dude, you know, I totally sympathize. And it's like, how do you deal with that? You know, does the dealer assist the guy? This is a good client. Who do you shoulda, woulda, coulda? It's like kind of like,
Budgie.
you know,
But what
so
were
that's
you
what we
saying
were just
about
talking
the
about.
PSI
It's,
key off being real high?
pardon me.
What were you saying about the PSI being real high with the key off? Like abnormally high?
Yeah, it was 4,600 KOEO.
And then you wiggle the wire and then what happened?
I put a fuel rail on it.
So, but that definitely changed something. After that fuel rail, it was different. Like
Oh,
it was.
Yeah,
That's
the vehicle started, but then he took it for a test drive and it acted up again. So now it's like, you know, what's the next step? Do you?
But
does the customer-
that PSI is gone now at key off.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's all after. Go ahead.
So you put a part on a car and it did change things, but it still got a problem. Is that what I'm hearing?
correct.
Okay, so my dad taught me this when I was like 12 years old. There's no law that says there could only be one thing wrong with a car. As you guys know, when a car has one symptom, there could be two problems or more at play. So you treated the symptoms that you saw,
And here's the next part. When you go through like the pinpoint test, it has nothing to do with the pump. It's all the left hand rail components. So
So
it's
you-
like,
So Cody, are you saying pump is the wrong direction?
I'm saying the
It's not in
pinpoint
the
test
pinpoint test.
is,
Oh,
it doesn't say that it's part of the
It's not
problem.
in the flow
but
chart.
With the
But it-
condition Aaron was dealing with, Cody is saying that he was going in the right direction with everything. That's the way everything was going. But that did not fix the issue, even though there was an issue there. It fixed that issue
Oh.
with the fuel pressure reading and stuff like that. But there's still another issue that has to be taken care of.
and it doesn't give you the information what it's talking about. It doesn't say, like, even if you go back and look into the theory and op manual, it says sets for a 20% deviation of FRP, but it doesn't say if that's a high, low of or what. So it's like it's an exceed learning. So it's like it's exceeded learning high. But is that a high pulse width modulation or is that a high fuel pressure?
but these readings are now normal. The ones that were extremely high key off, those are now
Mhm.
normal.
They're fine
Yeah.
now.
all right. So
So
here,
maybe you did think like what he's saying. Ducars is saying you fixed something.
So maybe there's another way to look at this too.
Oh,
This
the truck's got 424,000 on it.
what year?
So 15. So I have a
Wow.
lot of variables like,
Yeah, okay.
you
All right,
know,
so back up a step. What if you had done the repair you did and put a pump on it and it only needed one of those things?
yeah, exactly. That's why we did the rail and he's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you know,
Yeah, I mean, when you told them, hey, it needs this rail repair, you don't say, hey, this is what it's going to need and everything's going to work perfect. Just you have to start somewhere. I mean, it's like anything else.
I
You could've
originally
been a-
went into this, I wanted to put a pump and a rail on it. So
Sure.
either way, it was going to get a rail. I just
Right.
didn't know. Do I do a pump fucking two? Do I just do a
I mean,
flute?
the last thing you want to do is have a customer that knows that you put parts on a car that it didn't need. But in this case, you've already proved that the parts that you replaced changed something, which meant, and it brought it back into parameters, which means that you fixed a problem, but you didn't fix one of the other problems.
Mhm.
I think
It
you really hit the nail on the head when you said that your dad told you that when you were 12.
Yeah.
Like, that's a real good point.
Well, that's what I had told this customer when we were talking about this Audi as well. Is, hey man, just because I fixed this problem doesn't mean that there's not other problems your car is going to have, and that's exactly what. Like when you go to a doctor to have things diagnosed, do you go immediately when you can't detect something that's going on with you? Normally it takes a long time for it to build up. And then there are other things that start happening as well. And you get that one thing diagnosed. And then they're like, oh, by the way, you don't just have diabetes, you have high blood pressure, you have like gangrene and everything else. Now, but it's like, you same situation. They have to treat all of these things differently, and they have to test for all these things differently, and they're treated. None of them are treated the same, you know.
Well,
So
I hope you go into the doctor trying to get your spleen taken out, and they take your medulla oblongata. So somebody's gonna get something messed up.
That's what makes alligators so ornery.
I think that I think it's still better than carpet bombing cars and trying to throw a whole bunch of parts at it. I mean,
Absolutely.
is there any overlap in the work between the two?
Absolutely not. Nope, not whatsoever.
Okay, so I don't see any error here. The hardest part is convincing the customer, though. So
Correct.
one of those problems had no symptoms that he could see as a driver. The other problem had a symptom that he could see as a driver, and you fixed the one that had no symptoms he could see. That's the way
You
I look
fixed
at
the symptom.
Wow.
But here's a
Yep.
question. Here's a question, Eric. If you were the customer that owned this truck that Aaron is working on, would you be willing to pay for that, even though it didn't fix the truck?
but it fixed a problem with the truck. If I would be willing to pay for it, if I could see the before and after data saying, hey, you know, we replaced this rail and it's now reading correctly, but unfortunately it wasn't the only thing wrong with your car. It's going to need, or your truck, it's going to need this. It's all about the service advisor's delivery. You know, that's where service advisors shine or sink, really.
Mhm.
And you know, you have to educate the customer. You have to explain to them in ways that they can understand, hey, this may not be what you brought it in here for, but we did fix this, but we had to start somewhere and we opted for the cheaper repair. It fixed this, but it still has this other issue. 400,000 miles. If there's not a 400,000 mile vehicle out there that only needs one part.
That's a good point.
I mean,
I deal with that every day, man. Like,
Well, one thing though, the customer is not exactly qualified to pick and choose which components of a system they decide they want to repair or not. So if you come to a customer and you say, hey, your fuel system's got this problem and this problem, you know, this one's probably your symptom. This right here is very likely. They don't get to go, oh no, don't do that one.
Yeah, no.
Now they're doing your job for you.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. No,
you don't
I
get to
agree there.
your doctor like that, and the customer doesn't get to argue with the technician like that unless it really doesn't add up. I mean, that's what your job as a technician is to have the evidence and the knowledge to back up the parts
That's
you're
right.
going to put in this car. You got to be able to back that up somehow, some way.
Mhm.
You can't get
Power,
physical.
Power Stroke Tech Talk. As a technician, do you think that you came into this repair thinking that one thing could be the solution, where, like I do cars is saying, it can be a multiple of issues?
I thought it was going to be the rail, because of the FRP reading. But then I was like, well, the FRP is not going to make it shut off. The PCV could, which is at the back of the rail. And if I'm going to put an FRP sensor, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to replace the rail.
You gotta do the
So-
whole thing.
So that's kind of how we came to that conclusion. It's like, well, let me do this first. Let's take it back out and drive it. And FRP
but-
started reading fine.
Once you
That's
got a
all it
good,
did.
once
you
you
know?
got a good PCV in it, you found out that the pump was weak. I mean,
Yeah.
at that point,
Sometimes it takes replacing a part to diagnose the actual problem. You know, like it's just like a car. You get a dead car, and I mean, I know Ray's probably seen this stuff that gets flooded. You have to start somewhere. You're not gonna put
Hi,
one part in a
Rizzo.
flood car and it's gonna fire right up. It's gonna be like, okay, it doesn't power on. We replaced the ignition switch, now it powers on, but it still doesn't run. It's gonna need more repair. But you couldn't
Exactly.
figure out what else it needed until you replace the ignition switch.
I
I have-
think when the numbers get so high too, like when you're dealing with customer pay, and it's gonna be like 2,000
So-
here, 2,000 there.
Yes, I've got a 2007 S550 Mercedes right now. This is a lady that's very, very delicate. When she's 85 years old, she's on assistance, she's very well known in the community. She's got some money put away, but she doesn't have enough money put away to do this job. We did a charity job for her recently, $1,400 CV axle on this thing because they're outrageous, and I had to wait 3 days for it to ship out of Texas to get it. Now she came back in and she says, my air suspension's down. Well, the air pump's kicking on all the time, but it's making a rattling sound because the bushings in this thing wore out and they're not supporting the pump anymore. But what I could see when this thing was in the air, while spraying the airbags down with water, the air shocks, is the right rear shock is bubbling around the bellow. It's just bubbling and it's just air is coming out of it. And I said, look, I'm going to shoot you straight on this one. First of all, I've told you before, you really can't afford this car. This S550 is going to eat you alive. It is a very expensive car to fix. You're on assistance. You should not be driving this car. I'm just telling you. I've already had this conversation with you. That
Mhm.
air shock alone on the cheap side is going to be with my matrix to run the business. It's going to be like a $900 shock all the way up to $1,400. I can tell you without even looking it up. Depending on where I get it, it's going to go from $900 to $1,400, and then it's going to be a couple hours to install that shock. And then there's no guarantee that that air compressor is going to be strong enough because it's off constantly the entire time when the vehicle's on or off. Doesn't matter. It will still kick on because the system is trying to level itself out. The pump is probably wore out. I'm getting some air out of it, but I don't know that it's strong enough because I don't have a gauge system. Are you ready for that? Proceed forward, she says. She brings half the money down today. I ordered a shock. I put it on the vehicle. The pump is dead now. It is no longer pumping any air at all when we put the brand new shock on the vehicle. This is the type of stuff that happens in this industry, man.
Right.
Mhm.
It sucks because now she's going to be over $2,000 in this system with labor there, and she can't afford it. She cannot afford the car. It sucks.
I mean, yeah, but that's not your adult decision either. I mean,
I-
you know, at the end of the day, that's other people in their own lives. It's like, you know, if somebody pulls in with a diesel V8 anything and the fuel pump blew up, you know, they're running landscape work with this thing or whatever, you know, they got to be prepared to foot that bill. You can't build them a new fuel system because they can't afford it. You know, you got to pay to play when it comes to stuff. You know, nobody's got sympathy for a guy who's he can't afford to maintain his 35-foot boat. You know, they go, well, that's a
To an
luxury.
extent,
mean,
I
we
can
don't
agree
care
with
if the
you.
boat's broken down.
Rick, I can agree with you to an extent, but sometimes when people get older and they're not thinking clearly and they don't have other options and they get their mind in a place where the decisions aren't necessarily made very clearly, I tend to speak up and I tend to say, you know what, even when it's not my choice, you're right, it's not. But that's where I guess my empathy for people and stuff kicks in. And in a business, that's not good to be that way. It should be all about the business at the end of the day.
Yep.
But this lady, when I see her, I look at her and I think this is my grandmother. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, look, Miss Johnson, you can't, I'm telling you right now, this is not a good idea. And then
Well,
she
you
didn't
did
have
tell her you did advise against it though. See,
I-
and
why-
that's
two
what
times.
matters.
I told you to sell the car.
Yeah. I mean, and I've told people that plenty of times, you know, when someone goes, "Hey, what would you do?" I'll say it's straight every time. If this was mine, I wouldn't put a dime in it. I'd throw this thing away and get some bills. Don't throw good money at a bad problem, and that's good business.
Yeah.
You know, don't waste money, whether it's yours or somebody else's. If there's just a money pit hole in the wall somewhere, don't throw money into it. That's stupid. You know, let's back up and think about it. You might have to cut losses, but sometimes that's the right move.
Yeah.
This will be a learning experience where we're constantly learning. It's like just when you think you got the 6-7 figured out and wrangled.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was warranty, we wouldn't be talking about it because that's
I don't
sports
have
money.
anything to say right now. Okay. We don't have ESP plans that go to 430,000 miles.
I'm just saying, if it was Ford warranty, we wouldn't even be talking about it. We'd just throw a part at it.
But
Dude, can't you keep extending that ESP plan? Can't you like keep renewing it?
just that would be
Oh.
pretty sweet. What is this? And maybe I am not privy because I don't follow Dodge and FCA, but is there a such a thing called like a lifetime warranty?
Lifetime of the fluid. You know this.
Like trucks got over 100,000 miles, or is that just like particular to the dealership? Like you can buy this plan.
I've
like-
seen drivetrain that way.
Really?
I've never seen the whole
I think
car.
they used to offer first owner drivetrain lifetime warranty. But
Yeah.
you had to be the first owner. Like you couldn't transfer that to someone else, but you could transfer your powertrain warranty.
Look at this Dodge camshaft.
Custom ground.
Yeah, they made those things out of Twizzlers.
That was a lathe. Don't
That's
lie
a
to me.
f-
Yeah.
That's a 15.57 with just over 100,000 miles on it.
Probably a lot of
I-
idle time.
got
It's
a
my dad's
3.6
truck and it
camshaft.
does not have a lot of idle time.
Really?
That's that.
It pulls a
Gimme tip.
camper most of the time.
Ah.
Yeah.
I got a 3.6 camshaft that looks like that out of a police car.
Yeah,
They're horrible.
it's unfortunate. I had a 6.4 core come in probably about 3 years ago, and 70,000 miles is out of a Forest Service like 3/4 ton Dodge, but total bare bones truck, crank windows, no options at all. And there was this little city that one of our other stupid little things in St. Louis. We have all these little cities. Anyway, I got the core engine and it needed a cam and lifters, but they let it run so long with misfires and stuff that thing was a bearing mill. Like I could just take a scoop of bearing material and then plop it on somebody's plate. There's so much material.
Believe it or not, this only presented as a lien on that bank, a lien code on that bank. No
Wow.
ticks, no nothing.
It's evenly worn. That's why.
It's like, wow. I can't believe it's just presenting as a lien concern because I like swap the injectors, swap the plugs and coils or whatever. And if that's not it, you've got base engine concerns.
Was that out of?
My dad's 5.7 Ram.
Jeez.
Crazy.
Yeah, he's got it apart in his garage right now, waiting for new camshaft.
Time to put a big old cam in that thing, let it chop.
Well, he was gonna put a delete
Yes,
cylinder deactivation delete because he doesn't want to spend money on it, and because he wants to just pawn it off now that he's got an escape. So he's gonna fix it enough to sell it and sayonara.
Yeah.
So this 15 truck now, it's not stalling, it's just throwing a code now.
Yeah, it's having problems completing the high pressure fuel system test.
Oh wow. I don't know. It sounds like you're on the right track, man.
What are we talking about? You've been sleeping this whole time.
No, I've just been listening to you guys.
You got closed captions on so we don't wake you up or what?
No, I didn't fall asleep. I've been right here.
Better be reading these comments, man. They're busting your balls. Everybody, I
I
appreciate you guys checking in Wednesday nights. I enjoy talking with you guys. I wanted to get something off my chest, something I'm dealing with, and a little about a little talk about it kind of helps deal with it. Ford Boss had a good idea, as well as I Do Cars and all the rest of you guys. So with that being said, I don't know where Ford Boss, he just left. We will catch you next time, next Wednesday. Stop by on Friday. I have a goodie all coiled up for yous, and some here in the works. I think you're going to enjoy. There is going to be I'm going to say one giveaway, 2 items. I'm gonna pick two peeps. This is gonna be something of mine that I am upgrading. So you're gonna get my old one, which is in great shape. So stay tuned to the channel because it could be you. You gotta have a short bed, Super Duty, Illuma Duty. So everybody, I'll catch you later.
Go watch the SNS video.
Oh yeah, watch the SNS video, all you DCR non-believers. You're about to be dumbfounded. Go watch it.